about coronavirus and disease, and we are going to be looking at it from a different lens. I am your host, Piper Gibson, Director of FDN course enrollment, and I am so excited to have you all here with us today. If you are just joining us, make sure to drop the word test into the chat, and we are going to send you an invite for our upcoming webinar. That's going to be next week on the 24th at 3 p.m. Pacific. And Reed, I am so excited to have you with me today to talk about combating coronavirus and disease. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I don't have it yet. So, but I would like to just relax and have a good discussion about this. Hopefully you guys will pop in some questions there. I do much better, kind of laying out what FDN principles are. We're very holistic, very natural. We don't diagnose and treat conditions like coronavirus. That's a medical diagnosis. But at the same time, we know a few things about pathogens, whether it's bacteria, virus, fungus, or what have you, parasites, so we get all these things. And, we try to prepare ourselves, build a wall around ourselves as best as we can. Now, I was just on a Zoom. We're not on Zoom, right? This is Be Live?
Yes.
Because now, I don't want to take things lightly, but you know me. I get up every day and try to have a good time. And it doesn't mean I don't work hard, but I have a good. So I had this background, and it was like space, you're out in space. And I was going like this, like I'm taking social distancing to the max, just like doing that. It was funny. But anyway, that was a previous call. I can't figure out how to do that. Sorry about the unbuttoned shirt here. I'm not trying to be macho man. I just like taking my clothes off. So, I'd like to start off with anything you have in particular, or you just want to talk about, hey, what's the deal with this, pandemic?
Yes, I do. I have some things that I would love to discuss with you today. One of them, and the top one being, is why do you think we are seeing a rise in pandemics, but not just the coronavirus, but autoimmunity is also a pandemic? Why do you think that we are seeing this rise?
Yeah, I'm not sure autoimmunity qualifies as a pandemic. I really think those are when an outbreak of something occurs, and the spike in the number of people who get it is so contracted that it causes panic, it causes lines at the grocery store, it causes lines worse at the hospital, to the point where, like right now in Italy, where there is just, it's a pandemic, again, just when so many people get it all at once, the spike on the number of people at looking for care, it gets horrible, and it causes shortages in things like masks and safety gear and equipment and ways of treating people. According to the news, if you believe the news, and I tend to be pretty skeptical, according to the news this morning, in Italy, they are rationing care to the point where if you're over 80, you're not getting any. It's like you're done, and things like that. Like, so that's what a pandemic is. So, but I think you're right though, that the number of cases of things like autoimmunity and other chronic conditions are more prevalent, and there's reasons for that. So I just want to separate that they're not exactly the same thing. But the reason is, it's going to be a real shock to you, people are not healthy. Like people aren't healthy to begin with. Their immune systems are compromised. They don't exercise. Their detoxifications are compromised. Their hormones are out of balance. Their immune systems are overactive or underactive, as I was saying. Their digestion isn't working really good. They're not actually breaking down and absorbing nutrients very well. So people just really are what we're finding is a couple things. One is that genetic predisposition is becoming more prevalent, and so like if mom and dad have a gene and it's expressing in a negative way, it's becoming much more likely that that child, the next generation, will also have that same problem. We're seeing things pass through that ordinarily the new human would be, at ground zero. It'd be sort of like neutral. Like me, because my dad had colon cancer, you have to watch out for that. There's specific things to do or not do that would make you less likely to get colon cancer. So it's in geez. Now, if I just did what my dad did, I'd probably get it too. So there's all those things going on. So plus the environment. It's not the environment that I grew up in Canada 60 plus years ago. I believe we could drink rainwater, and we washed our food off in it, which my grandfathers grew. And the soils contained all the nutrients, all the minerals and things that they're supposed to. And of course, we were kicked outside every single day. There was no video games. We were kicked outside. It didn't matter if it was raining. If it's raining, it's time to go outside. Put your rain suit on, and those stupid boots that we had. And if it was snowing, put your snowsuit on. Matter of fact, we loved that. We couldn't be contained if it was snowing outside. You had to go outside. So just people don't live like that anymore. If it snows now, it's like, oh, take a day off school, stay home, watch TV or play your video games, whatever. It just really isn't the same world. So those are some of the reasons. I mean, you can get much deeper than that, especially when it comes to the environment, why we're just unhealthier. So then there are those that would argue, hey, certain things are going to kick your rear end no matter how healthy you are. And I would, in terms of corona, and that's true, like with Ebola, doesn't matter how healthy you are, you get Ebola, you're 50% chance you're going down. You're going to turn toes up sooner or later, at least 50% of the time. You'd have to get immediate, intervention, immediate heroic care to even last, a couple of days. So there's some stuff that will kill you no matter how healthy you are, but coronavirus isn't one of them. Coronavirus is one of those things that the healthy you are, the less likely that, in matter of fact, probably there's some relationship between how symptomatic you get and how healthy you are. So again, I learned this 20 plus years ago working in a chiropractic office. Healthy people don't get sick. Sick people get sick. In other words, they just are subject to whatever comes down the pike. So in general, that's part of why.
Absolutely. And, where you look at the fact that it's not necessarily the virus that's going to kill you, but your body's reaction to that virus. So if you are not starting out in a healthy state, you are going to be more susceptible to those complications from the symptoms that come from the virus.
Yeah, generally speaking, what you're talking about is called vitalism, which is the old argument, it's 150 years old, roughly. What is the problem? Is it the germ or is it the host? So a pure vitalist would say, oh, it's the host. Well, that's true up until, again, when Ebola comes along. It doesn't matter who the host is. So I learned that from one of my mentors a long time ago. There's some stuff that would just kick your butt. And so you want to avoid contact. The whole point there is to avoid exposure. And that could be said for some other things to varying degrees, like mold, for instance. Mold will kick your butt too, but it's very insidious. And you can actually do things to mitigate and to, again, we want to sort of build a wall around ourselves if we can against, call it aging, call it, anti-disease and these kind of things. I love, and again, this is just a conversation, folks. I'm not here to lecture you or anything. I just, and if we get some questions, hands raised, things like that, it would be wonderful. How long is this show, by the way?
Absolutely. We usually go about 20 minutes. But if we have a lot of questions, if you guys are watching out there and you have some questions, definitely drop them in the chat. We would love to talk about those questions with you. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Reed, was, in this time of this pandemic and people are very stressed out, they're anxious. How does anxiety really affect the immune system? What's going on?
Well, if you are too sympathetic dominant people tend to run a little higher on their cortisol because the body thinks you're in a flight fight state, so it's basically kicks in the fight flight mechanism that raises your cortisol. Cortisol suppresses the main ingredient in your immune system, secretory IgA. It suppresses it, so those people get sicker quicker and probably have worse symptoms than others. Although cortisol is an anti-inflammatory and painkiller, so you got to realize that that your body's going to try to protect you, but it can only do it for so long. The ramifications of long-term elevated cortisol aren't good. Basically, you get into a catabolic state, and now not only have you suppressed your immune system, but your body's starting to break down in other ways. Your hormones get out of balance because secretory IgA is the main ingredient. Let's say the immune ingredient in the gut. You've heard your gut is 80% of your immune system. Well, it's because it's Sig-A mostly. There's other factors, but you don't want to suppress that. So that's why we say that your attitude matters. Like doing things to de-stress on that mental, emotional level. Hell, this morning, I do this not every day, but I have to remind myself to do it because I wake up some mornings too early. I go to bed real early, 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'm already, my head's on the pillow. And I'll sleep really soundly. Like, I think I get a really good deep sleep until around 2 in the morning, and then, man, I can wake up and just can't go back to sleep. So I'll put on some meditation tapes, and they just sort of change your attitude. Now, I can either go back to sleep or I can get up and work, but at least my mood is good. I'm happy, so I'm very happy. You find me working at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've slept, like I say, from that 8:30 or 9 till 2 or 3 even, and as long as it's a really deep, high quality sleep, I'm in good shape, and my immune system in good shape. And if I'm really, I get that, like, oh shit, that email I have to answer. I don't want to deal with that person. Just you get all this stuff, and you got to chill from that. So I put on meditation tapes, and I try all different ones. I have a favorite guru, of course, but they're all good. You just find the voice you like and the cadence you like, and the things they're saying just seems to appeal to you. Very positive, really positive stuff. Next thing you know, I'm going, all right, screw it. The first thing I'm going to do is go answer that email. Get downstairs. I work here at home, and I sleep up there, and I work down here. And you take care of those things. Confront. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah.
Again, I had scheduled an hour for this, so I've been talking really kind of just laid back and stuff. I think we should cover a couple important things about what makes COVID-19 different than a cold. It's not a common cold. It's not influenza. It's more virulent than that. In other words, influenza kills a lot of people, but the average person just has flu-like symptoms for a few days. This stuff for those people who are compromised, for those older people who already have 2 or 3 comorbidities, using the medical terminology, but really just that they've already are sick or on medication. They got all kinds of crap, whether it's diabetes or one of those autoimmune conditions, especially if it has anything to do with the pulmonary breathing, asthma and stuff. They can die at a higher rate per incident than influenza. So apparently it's more virulent than influenza. And more people get influenza, but you don't want to get this stuff. So some of the things you can do is realize how it works. Like I'm sure you've already been told, social distancing, that's to prevent the spike in the spread of it. But wash your hands and all these sorts of things. I would even use gloves if you're really concerned. If you can't help it but be a bunch around dirty people, or lots of people that you don't know them and stuff like that, you can even wear gloves. But I've stopped shaking hands. Use the knuckles, the light touch, even to friends. And actually, I haven't been out of the house much, but couple of times. If you open doors, use like a closed fist, use your hip if you can, use your elbow and stuff like that. Like I'm coming out of the bathroom now and I wash my hands really good, for 20 seconds, sing happy birthday. Make sure you're washing the wrists too, not just your fingers, and don't put your hands near your mouth. But I'll use the paper towel to open the door, hold it up with my foot, and then pitch the paper. I know that sounds weird, but man, if you don't want to spread germs, do some of these things. Also, disinfectant wipes. I never really used them much, but I bought a few, things, and I'm using those, wiping handles, and especially things that kids are monkeying around with. They all have dirty fingers, so you want to wash all their stuff down.
Yeah.
I raised 4 kids, so I'm speaking from experience. So, hand sanitizers, really good to have. I've never really kept that around. I keep one in my car now, and you just got to be careful. Really, you don't want this stuff. Don't be around people who cough and sneeze. Just say, hey, you or I are leaving. And sometimes it should be them. It might sound rude, but in today's, you just can't take chances. I am not one of these people. I was Skyping with someone last night, and they said, oh yeah, everyone here is just going out and having a good time. They're just saying, oh, screw virus. We're all gonna get it. We might as well just, get you. No, that's not true. I don't want that stuff. Plus, I'm in a slightly, even though I'm in really good health, I am older. I don't know, things like that. So you could also stock up on surgical masks if you get. If you have to be out and about, they'll prevent you from putting your fingers in your mouth, which apparently, according to Dr. Oz, we do, 90 times a day or something like that. And I'm taking a lot of zinc and other things, even just over-the-counter coldies. They probably have too much sugar in them. Get the sugar-free from you can if you want, but do stuff like that. Getting a little bit deeper into it. Again, COVID-19 is more than a cold. It's pretty intense, and it focuses on creating inflammation, especially in the lungs. So it actually creates this cytokine storm. So you're just really ticked off your immune system, and you're going to get inflammation. And if it stops you from breathing, you're dead. And so if you already have some of these lung conditions. It's COPD and that kind of stuff. Any COPD, you really want to load up on your vitamins A, D, C. The antioxidants and zinc. There's other supplements and herbs. You might want to look up herbs. Matter of fact, in the FDN course, we have an advanced course in herbology. It's amazing what it teaches you. So there's herbs that block these inflammatory cytokines, the immune system. And some herbs also have antiviral properties. So with herbs, you can do this. Now, this is not medical advice. If your temperature is 105 and you're coughing and you can't breathe, your throat's, go see a doctor. But if you want to just sort of be prepared around the house and things like that, these are good stuff to look into. There's some other things that you could do. Look up BCM 95 curcumin. It's really concentrated, super duper curcumin, which is a known anti-inflammatory. As long as you don't have a sensitivity to it, it's good. N-acetylcysteine, NAC. Now, I've been taking that for years. Matter of fact, I learned years ago about that when I did have the flu. It's been a couple of years, but that NAC will help knock it out. If it's going away, man, you pound that stuff, it goes away that faster. There's also something called isoquercetin, quercitrin, ISOQUERCITRIN. That inhibits cytokines, and it protects specifically pulmonary tissue or lung tissue. And so there's other stuff. We know beta glucans and things like that are good. They meddle with the ability of a coronavirus to invade and replicate. So that's the other thing. If you get it and you want it to go away, you don't want it reproducing in your body. There are some herbs that have been studied well, and they meddle with the ability of some of these things to replicate. Now, there's one that everyone's going to ask about. What about biobotanical research, which is biocide? Mm-hmm. That does just about everything. There's all kinds of research on that and what it's done for people with other viruses, some pretty serious ones. But I don't think they've studied coronavirus. But that wouldn't stop me from taking it. Yeah, I would take it along with whatever my doctor recommended. That's one of the things where they're the boss. Health coaches are junior to physicians when it comes to these some of these nasty bugs. And of course, you should sequester yourself right away. Anyway, I'll just see if there's any questions. Anything come up?
There is a question. Hi, Donna and Ella and Sherry. Thank you for joining us. If you have questions and you're watching, please make sure to drop them in the chat and we will absolutely get to those. Shelly wants to know, she said she's been sharing similar sentiment with her followers, but she thinks her self-care recommendations seem simple to be most effective. So how can you otherwise convince our friends and family to focus inwardly?
Well, they could take a look at their own lives. They could also do some research, look at why people die. Why don't we live to be 120? The body's perfectly designed to live to be about 120. Now, there's others that will stretch it out to about 180. I've read all their books, and I really enjoy it. And I go, hell yeah, give me some of that expensive stuff too when I can afford it. I mean, but most of those strategies are really expensive. So, but there's a guy named Roy Wolford, WOLHLFORD, Roy Wolford. He's a medical doctor. He was the nutritionist for the biosphere experiments back in the late 90s, I think it was. And he determined through research, he's the head of nutrition at I think it's UCLA or USC, and they would hate me for not knowing which one if you went to one of those schools, but because they're extreme rivals. But he was the man. He was the guy that determined how to he could make mice or rats live 5 years. Now, they don't live a white rat will not live past 2 years. My kids had them. I know they live exactly 2 years, and then they died, and they were just fine the day before, kind of a thing. You just find them dead. He made rats live 5 years. Now, rats aren't people, but you learn a few things when you do that. That's an amazing study on longevity. Roy Wolford's. It's called the 120-year diet. The 120-year diet. So it's not me saying this. I mean, I've been doing this a while. I took my telomeres test. I'm 66. They said I had the health, vibrancy, the cellular wellness of someone 40. And I feel most of the time like 40, if my back isn't bothering me from the injuries I've had, and I've done serious damage to my body, but I maintain it and do stuff. I feel no more than 40 anyway. Sometimes I feel 17. Not as often as I like, but.
But hey, I think that's awesome, Reed. I didn't know that fun fact, so I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So, focusing inwardly, Shelly, that's what you want your followers to do. And we have a program for it, that's just proven. Let me finish with this. I know you don't want to stand here forever. I won't finish with this. Wherever you want to finish is fine. But in 1903, Thomas Edison said the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but he will interest his patient in diet, care of the human frame, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Well, the bad news is that he was wrong about doctors uh, giving no medicine. Last year, 4.2 billion prescriptions were filled. So 1903, the doctor of the future will give no medicine. Wrong. That's the bad news. But the good news is that here we are to interest the patient client in diet, in care of the human frame, and in the cause and prevention of disease. This is our backyard. This is what we do. And it doesn't really conflict. There's actually not that much overlap with what medical doctors do. Boy, when you need one, you better go, be glad that you have them around. But if you want to build up immunity, you want to do anti-aging, if you're concerned with the cause and prevention of disease instead of waiting until you have it, that's what's expensive. Now, I'm actually seeing the screen here. I'm not real technically adept at this stuff, but I see Donna said, where can I go for the telomeres test? It's called Telo Years, Teloyears, like Telo Years. And it's just a cheek swab, and it's not expensive. You throw it in the bag and you send it off, and they tell you it's kind of a DNA test, but they just look at a few extra things. You know what telomeres are? So you spelled it right, telomeres. See what telomeres are? The reason we die is because every time a cell is replicated, the DNA strand, the end of it, it's a tiny, tiny bit shorter. And so that's why we're programmed to die. And this is where Roy Wolford wrote the 120-year diet, was where I learned that stuff. And I ended up taking that telomeres test. I'm very proud of myself.
I'm going to take that test. I have always wanted to do it, so I'm going to absolutely look it up and do it myself, because I think it would be cool.
It's scary because I've seen 50-year-olds come out 65 on that test, and they thought they were healthy. It really is a lot about it's kind of like your genetics, mm-hmm. but depending on how you've lived, epigenetics, it's modified to some extent. So I think, man, I can't say that I've always done good, clean living. I've actually had a really good time in my life, but that didn't come out right. But just thank goodness, right?
Absolutely.
So
I do, in this current climate, in this time of distress, what role can health coaches play?
Yeah, well, the trick is to, when you figure that out, and we've come up with a pretty good definition. And what is our backyard? Matter of fact, because I've been doing this 20 years, my background prior to this was environmental law, so I have a pretty good perspective on where lines are drawn. And I've never once in 20 years of running thousands of labs on thousands of people, I've never practiced medicine. I have, initially you get kind of tempted. You think you're like godlike because you can really help people, but you are not a doctor. You cannot diagnose or treat anything specifically. But guess what works better than that? And this is our backyard. And this is the role we play. The general principles of health building will outperform specific treatments. So, I hear people say all the time, I'm a gut specialist, I'm a liver specialist, I'm a thyroid specialist, I'm a this or that. Well, for marketing purposes, you may want to identify a niche, but you're not better at one than you are at another, except for maybe some of the anecdotal things, and you're used to the mentality, the mindset, the people who show up, the demographic shows up a certain way. And so that's what you'd want to speak to. But as far as what you can help a person fix or help a person recover from, we apply the principles and let the chips fall where they may. We're so solidly grounded in those principles of health building that we're confident and clear that's our backyard. That's what we do. So the role we play is to provide people with the holistic lifestyle recommendations. And in our particular niche in health coaches, we run labs. So we have identified the healing opportunities. So we didn't we do a show on this the other day about treating the person and not the test results?
Yes, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
We did that, and we talked about that.
Okay, so that's what we do. We don't actually treat, but we apply the general principles of health building to the person. The test results just tell us what's out of balance, more or less. We use the term healing opportunities, not medical diagnosis. We just don't do that. It's not our backyard, and it's also illegal. If you think about it, really, like you don't want to practice medicine without a license. You know what? We give them a complete monopoly on diagnosing and treating specific conditions, and because that's their backyard, and also they don't use the same method as us for addressing those problems. They're mostly symptom based. So if they can make the symptom go away, everybody's happy, right? Well, not us, because we don't want them to coming back. We want to find out why we got them. And so it's back to the subject for today. Coronavirus will happen if you get exposed in a bad way. Like, apparently they haven't even fully researched the ways you can get it. Like, could you touch a doorknob and get it? Well, I'm not taking any chances. How long does it live on? Let's say you go rent a car, you probably should wipe it yourself, because who knows, who was in it last, and how good they cleaned it and things like that, and what did they clean it with, and these sorts of things. So you're going to get it because you got exposed. There's problems with even, where do you draw the line on that? Do you have to get sneezed on? Do you have to kiss somebody with? No, you don't. It's pretty damned contagious. Mm-hmm. And so that starts there. Then if you are exposed, then the question comes in, well, who's gotten exposed? Who's the individual? What are their hormones, digestive system, detoxification system, and especially immune systems look like? Some people are just weaker. They have less vitality, if you will, or flexibility in their resistance systems. Less flexibility. They're not good.
So one of the things that we've talked about offline was that really people are going to come out of this with a really heightened awareness, a sense of how important their health really is. Do you feel like now is the time for people to really embrace the health coaching, becoming a health coach, taking, the health coaching courses, becoming an FDN?
Say that again. What was the question?
So we know that people will probably come out of this with a heightened sense of awareness about the importance of their health. Right. So yeah. Do you feel like now is the time to really embrace becoming a health coach and, take the FDN course?
Well, whatever course you take, the health coaching business is blowing up. It's blowing up. People, the public needs you now more than ever, because this is not being taught in schools. Once you get past 9th grade biology and cut open a frog, what else do you learn about biology and physiology and anatomy and biochemistry, things like that? So not much, unless you go into college and kind of specialize in that area. And not everyone does. Personally, I was in liberal arts, so it wasn't until post-grad I went into the environmental law thing. So people are going to have to go back to school and study if they want to be knowledgeable. And again, the health coaching business is booming. Our particular niche in that are the ones who do want to learn that anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and things. We're heavy on that. Teach you how things work so that you can understand why a person needs to follow certain instructions, and you need to know how does that activity help a person? How do you restore balance? Well, it's always 5 things, and it's a combination of them. So it's not just diet and exercise. There's a lot more involved. And by the way, I want to make sure, the reason I lost attention there, Ella, who's infection specialist for past years, says this is not airborne. I've heard differently, and but you have to contact. I think you can get it both ways. If someone is breathing in your face, and because there's a vapor there, there's moisture in the breath. So moisture in the breath, apparently can transfer this microscopic virus. Now, I'll be glad to hear that that's not true, but and I don't doubt any Israeli infection specialist, but there's others around who say, they haven't really fully studied how contagious it is and the ways you can get it. I know I'm not eating any bats or snakes.
Yeah, that doesn't sound delicious. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Reed, as far as corona or looking at disease or anything that you would like to put out there?
Yeah. Well, just for Ella, I think she's saying she was positive. She's very healthy. And this was worse than getting the flu, I think. You were trimming a horse when it was the worst. I feel for you. And then with Shelley, you educate. How can you otherwise convince our friends and family to focus in really? Number one is you walk the talk. You demonstrate to them. And if they think you're nuts, let them think you're nuts. Like I stopped shaking hands with friends. I'm not going out. Haven't been to a gathering of any number at all. And I only stay for 15 or 20 minutes, enough to take care of whatever social responsibility or business, responsibility I had to. Everything else I'm doing at home. That's the other beauty of being a health coach, by the way, is you get to work out of your house. And we use the internet, and the only germs on my keyboard are mine,
Yes, and that is a super huge bonus.
It's amazing. Yeah. So actually, for 20 years, we've already been doing the things that will make you more resistant and, create that flexibility so that if you do catch something, you get invaded, that hopefully you kick its ass before it kicks yours.
100%. Absolutely agree. Well, Reed, do you have any tips or tools, something that you want people to take away from our conversation today?
Well, if something rang a bell with you, take that away, because we covered a lot of ground. So typically when I speak, I tend to bounce around a little bit. I don't have prepared speeches, but I'm always willing to talk. What I love best is answering questions from our perspective, to give you a certain perspective on it, so I talk like a health coach. And so if whatever resonated with you, I started off with talking about meditation and chilling out and not letting anxiety get to you, and because that'll suppress your immune system. And boy, if you think you feel bad, wait till you get the coronavirus. So so, and then we went into the supplements and things like that, the dress program. I don't know if we covered that well, but if you've been following these Facebook Lives, then you know where we're coming from. And we have a tribe of a few thousand people, at least 1,000 very active practitioners, very professional, the whole business, everything. And there's no time is like right now to become a health coach.
Yes. I agree 100%. I think now is the best time. People are going to be seeking out health coaches and trying to improve their health. And, as an FDN, I do work from home. It's virtual, and it's really a blessing, especially now. My kids are home for 3 weeks. So, now is the time, 100%. 100%. Well, Reed,
Good night.
thank you so much for joining me on the Real Results Show today. You always have so much wisdom and knowledge to share, and I really appreciate it. I always have something great to take away. So thank you for joining me. If you are watching the replay, make sure to drop your questions in the chat. You can also drop the word test into the chat, and we are going to send you a link for next week's webinar series on the 24th. So make sure to drop that in the chat and we will get you a link for that. But thank you everyone for joining us today and interacting, and we hope you found some really valuable information. I will be back next week with the regular Real Results Show. So thank you guys. We will see you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.